Hello and welcome back to another episode for Project Seed Money. My name is Sharissa Bradley and I am so excited that you are here. This episode is a little bit different because instead of sharing with you the tips and tricks that I've learned in the industry, I'm actually going to tell you as many of the mistakes that I've made that I can pull off the top of my head and fit into a short video for you. Because sometimes we learn better from people's mistakes than we do from their advice. And so in this video, I'm going to give you as many of those mistakes as I have made as an author and as a publisher. Let's jump right in. The very first mistake I made right off the bat was I just didn't tell people that I was writing my book until after I had written my book. What happens with that is the sales for the book really don't even stand a chance. During that first week that a book is published, there should be tons of buzz around the book. And the way that you create that buzz is by marketing months in advance. Starting your marketing process even while you're still writing your manuscript, even before you have details about the cover or even what the title is going to be, telling your audience or even building an audience around the fact that you are writing a book is a huge, huge deal and a major mistake that I made not once, but twice. When I first published my book and then when I published a second edition of that book 5 years later. Both times, the first week that my book was out, my sales were abysmal because I hadn't told anybody that I had published my book. So, number one mistake right off the bat is just not telling anybody. Keeping something like that a secret over a long time can create a fun little thing when it does come out. However, those sales are going to reflect the fact that the marketing stunk. Number one mistake I made is not marketing properly, and really not marketing properly even after the book was published because I didn't understand what it meant to sell a book once it was written. So understanding the marketing and understanding where that comes from, that has definitely been my biggest mistake so far in the industry. The next biggest mistakes that I've made have to do with formatting the files itself. Not knowing specifically what types of files each platform needed created an abundance of headaches for myself because every time I would try to upload new files, I was met with errors because of bleed and trim size and the actual file size. Because when you do publish a book that has a bleed, your file size is actually a different size than what your print size is. So there are differences between these terminology that I just really had no clue about. And I definitely recommend if you are starting a self-publishing journey or even an indie or a hybrid publishing, that you learn what it is that you need to do for your files. So if it's going to be a self-published book uploaded to KDP, for example, on their help page, they show exactly the trim sizes, exactly the bleed size, exactly the gutter size, which is that inside spine of the book. And they give all of the tools that you need before you even start your project. So then that way the files can be formatted properly right from the beginning. I did not do that. I made that mistake at least 4 or 5 times. Even as a publisher, as I continue to publish people's books, I still continue to get errors because of the nitty gritty details like the bleed, the trim, the file size, the fonts. One other big mistake I made was when I was moving files from Canva and putting them onto my publishing app called Affinity. I didn't realize that not all of my fonts were going to transfer and then I was going to have to then buy the fonts for that project. So that project ended up costing me an extra $80 because I needed to pick fonts that were actually available to me, or I was going to have to commercially buy those fonts. So understanding even your font, you might have to buy it commercially through some type of platform for buying fonts because otherwise you maybe don't have the right to publish that font and maybe isn't going to come off of an editing tool like perhaps Canva and then move into another tool without switching fonts on you. So if there is something that you're particularly in love with, a specific font that you like, has to be the font for the book, then make sure you buy the commercial license for that font so that you are able to upload it to whatever platform that you need when it comes to actually designing your book. So if you are doing your own formatting and you are doing your own design, fonts, believe it or not, can be an actual real life challenge and a mistake that I have made multiple times. The next mistake that I made one time was uploading a book that was sent to my publishing house from Google Docs. the file was sent and uploaded to Google Docs. They shared that link with me. I downloaded that file from Google Docs and tried to upload it immediately to KDP. Turns out that KDP does not accept files that are coming from Google Docs. So that had to be actually changed and then saved onto my computer. And then once I was able to save it as like regular PDF, then it was able to upload. But I kept getting errors because I was uploading it from a Google Doc that had like its own little chain connected to it, and it just did not work. So even where you put your files to save them, make sure that you do have a clean version of your PDF ready to upload when it comes to actually uploading your books. The next mistake I made was pricing. It's really challenging to determine the price for your book until you learn how much it will cost to actually print that book. So until the book is almost to its very last point of being published and upload all of the files. For instance, if it's Amazon KDP, they will tell you exactly how much it's going to cost to print that book, what the costs are going to be to print and ship for your specific book that you're making. And then they will also give you subsequently a minimum price because when you are publishing on KDP and you want to have that ability for people to order books from you at wholesale costs, the wholesale price is actually 55% less than what you're selling it for. And if you mark your book too low, you'd end up having to pay if somebody wholesale ordered your book. So that would be completely crazy. And I definitely have underpriced books before without realizing the book price that it was going to be when it actually got to that point. So wait until you get to the point where you know how much it's going to cost to print your book. Then you will be given a minimum price that you can actually set. And then you'll determine from there what type of profit you would like to make from your book and then actually set that pricing. So many, many times I have made the mistake of pricing a book before I have actually seen how much it's going to cost. And then almost every time I've had to raise the price of the book in order to get it to be the right profit margin to be earning anything on a book. The next mistake with pricing is if you're buying your own ISBN number, which I highly recommend buying your own ISBN number so that you're able to take your book from not just being an Amazon book, but being able to sell it everywhere. You do need to own your own ISBN number. And if you do own an ISBN number and you decide to buy a barcode and you put the price on that barcode, you have to buy a brand new barcode if you change your price. It costs $25. So if you priced your book and you had it all designed and you're ready to go, but then it's going to cost more money and you have to change that price on the barcode, it's an additional $25 to change that. I have made that mistake as well, assigning a barcode, assigning a price, and then having to change that price before it was even published. That's a big mistake. The next mistake was my timing. Sometimes you are not, no, none of the time you are in control of the timing of the books. Now, it could be that Amazon or whatever publishing platform that you have decided to use doesn't approve your files, or maybe they get stuck in limbo. I had a book get published during holiday season and it got lost on the platforms because the platform was dealing with Black Friday and it just got lost. It ended up sitting in review for over a week when it said it would take maximum of 72 hours. So we're absolutely not in control of the timing of when a book can be published. So give yourself a little window. I would like to have my book published between these days. And then that gives you time to make sure that the book can actually get published on time. And if you set things up like pre-sales on your website, you can have your book published and shipped out without anybody feeling like there's a window. It can just be in your mind that you're publishing between a window date. And if you do tell the public you're setting a date for your publication, I would absolutely recommend telling the public that it will be published 1 week or 2 weeks from the time that you actually start that publication process, and make sure your files are perfect, because once it gets close to that date, you won't be able to make any adjustments about 10 days before the book gets published. So if there is an error, there is a correction that needs to be made, the bad files will actually get sent out. This is another mistake that I have actually made, where I've gotten too close to the publication date and the files were locked and I was unable to make any changes. And then on the day that the book launched, 2 people got sent out books that were actually not correct because the files weren't able to be adjusted once they got into that 10-day window. That's another mistake I've made. So if you are trying to get a specific date, I definitely recommend telling people a different date, doing a pre-sale for yourself through your website or through your social media. And then at that point, when it does actually get published, you can share that link safely without feeling that panic of, oh my gosh, will it publish on time? Because there is a very likely chance that it won't publish in exactly the same day that you were hoping it would, just because those time windows for the review periods, unless you're way, way ahead of yourself and way in advance, which would be amazing, then don't make that same mistake I did. Give yourself ample time where your files are perfect and you know that it can be published at exactly the right moment with the right files. These platforms like Ingram Sparks and KDP, they do allow you way in advance to be setting these things up and still have your publication date be exactly what you want if you give yourself enough of a buffer period, which I have not on multiple occasions, which is why it is in this video of how many mistakes I have made. The last mistake I want to talk about is the cost of publishing. I briefly brought up with the ISBN number and the barcode. If you do purchase your own ISBN number, which I do recommend, and you do purchase your own barcode, which I do recommend, that comes at a cost. Sometimes, depending on what package you buy, if you get multiple ISBN numbers for a physical book and an ebook, then you may end up spending a little closer to like $200 to get these things, the ISBN and the barcode. The mistakes that I have made when it comes to actually costs and publishing is not understanding what the little things are along the way. The publishing platform may not charge you any fees at all. For example, KDP will allow you to publish your book completely for free. You can even create a cover on their cover creation platform. But if you decide to bring your own ISBN number so that you can sell your book in other places besides just Amazon, that will cost you that $200 depending on what package you buy and how many ISBN numbers you get, etc. If you decide you want to copyright your book, that is an additional $65 cost. Plus, you have to send into the Library of Congress 2 physical copies of the book. That should be included in those costs. If you're thinking, oh, the book maybe costs like $10 to print, you're going to need to have 2 copies of that to send to the Library of Congress with your copyright. Some other mistakes when it comes to costs include things like if you're going to get your cover designed, that does come at a cost. Formatting the book, if you don't want to learn yourself or create, like buy the software and learn how to do those types of things all on your own, that does come at a cost. And there are multiple ways to format your book depending on what types of formats you're putting out into the world. This could be a print book would need to be formatted differently than an ebook, for instance. And if you do want to publish both an ebook and a print book, then you'll need to ask the formatter to do both. They don't always do both. They are not always capable of making that ebook file. So that is an additional cost that I have made the mistake multiple times. And I think the biggest expense that when it comes to publishing a book is actually getting your book professionally edited. This is a mistake if you don't get your book edited, because once we're reading the same things over and over and over again, it's really easy for our eyes that have memorized what we have read to skim over the lines just very quickly with what we're reading over and over. And it's easy to miss things, and it's easy to make up in your head the story that you're reading and then not quite read exactly what's on the page. Whereas someone with fresh eyes who's coming in to read it will recognize where there are gaps or holes in the stories, where something just drops off and doesn't make sense, as well as those in text little errors that we all need that little support with in the end, anyways. And professional editing can come at quite an expense. Getting a book published, if you're doing self publishing, can cost anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 to get it done properly. If you're doing all of those steps yourself, there is still a cost involved when it comes to the software that you will be needing in order to format your book properly and designing your cover. If you're using something like Canva, that can come at a cost if you're using Canva Pro. If you're using the Canva free version, just make sure you're making the changes that are necessary, because there are rules involved with publishing Canva work that isn't exactly changed or unique to your own design and then profiting off of it. So there are some challenges when it comes to using Canva to do your book cover design. And if you choose to do it yourself in some of these other platforms, like KDP has their own cover design tools, Lulu has their own cover design tool, and you will just recognize that there could be sometimes a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to new software, and you may not be paying in physical money, but you may be paying in time, which goes back to that previous mistake that I've made several thousand times, which is not giving myself enough time to make sure that each step along the way gets done. So, in the publishing world, to sum it up, there are millions of ways that you can make mistakes, and it is so good if you can just kind of break it down and give yourself little bite-sized things to do step by step by step. I hope this helps you to not make some of the mistakes that I have made. And I do hope that you can find so much success along your journey of publication and that you do not get stopped by some of these silly things like the trim size or the bleed. I am going to link down in the video below some of these places like the help centers of each one of the platforms that are kind of the bigger ones and hopefully help you to avoid making these little mistakes that will just take time and energy away from the actual joy of publishing your book. So, congratulations on your journey, and I am so excited for you. Thank you for being a part of our video, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.